So you're training, you're eating well, and for a long time it was working, and then suddenly it just stops. The scales don't move, you don't feel, you don't look any different, everything just comes to a halt. And everyone says the same thing, oh, it must be your metabolism slowing down. It's not your metabolism. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what's going on, because the real reason is something that no one else is talking about. And once you see it, you can't really unsee it. I'm also going to share something at the end that most coaches never mention. Something that might actually be keeping you stuck. And it has absolutely nothing to do with your diet and training, so make sure you stay with me. So your metabolism, let's talk about it. First of all, it does play a role, just not in the way that you probably think. As you lose weight, your body naturally gets lighter. A lighter body needs less calories and less fuel to function and to sustain. An example being, let's say you was 85 kilos and you maintain on 3,000 calories per day. And let's say that this person, you lost 15 kilograms. So you went from 80 kilograms right down to 65. The calories that you maintained on at 85 kilos are going to be significantly less once you are 65 kilos because you've lost 15 kilos, so you need less calories to sustain that 65 kilo body. It's not particularly rocket science, but this is called metabolic adaptation. It's real, but the change is actually pretty small and not nearly enough to completely stop progress on its own. Something that I think is quite interesting. Research shows that your metabolism actually stays pretty consistent through your 30s and your 40s. And we only tend to see like an actual decline in metabolism when you get to around 60, but even then, it's still a minimal amount per year. Now you might be sat here thinking, James, what if I've got something wrong with my thyroid? Now that could be a thing, but that's worth ruling out first. So you've got to be going to your GP, having that conversation, getting a referral and getting your thyroid tested. Now sometimes the fix is really straightforward. Sometimes you do just need to eat a little bit less and move a bit more. That can get things going again if you've plateaued. But what I find is that most women that come to me that have got to this stage, they've already tried that. They've already tried to reduce calories and move a bit more, and it's not really got them anywhere. So if that's you and the obvious stuff hasn't worked, this is what I'm going to share with you that's going to be most invaluable. Because in my experience, there are 3 things that are almost always behind a plateau at this stage. And unlike metabolic adaptation, these things you can actually do something about. Okay, so reason 1, you're probably not moving as much as what you think, and you're probably moving less the longer you've been dieting. I don't mean your workouts, I don't mean that hour or 2 that you spend in the gym, I mean everything else surrounding your day. When you've been eating less for quite a while, your body likes to do something quite clever, albeit it is quite annoying and not what you really want. Starts conserving energy wherever it can. I used to notice it when I was in fat loss phases many years ago. I'd catch myself leaning on things a little bit more, not wanting to take the stairs, wanting to take the lift, or if you're from America, by any chance, the elevator. Happened all the time. I'd have to catch myself from doing it. Basically, we all just get a little bit lazier, and that's not a personal attack. I've experienced it. Pretty much all of my clients experience it as well. So you're probably still going to the gym or getting your classes in, but everything else surrounding that workout has quietly started to downregulate, or you've started to move less. A little thing can often be sometimes a thing that starts to quietly stall your progress. Instead of just looking at classes, instead of just looking at training, start to look at how much you're actually moving outside of your workouts. Something that you can do that's quite easy is just buy like a cheap pedometer, a cheap step counter, or even just use your phone like your Apple Health and just log your steps, see how much you're moving per day. Just looking at how much you're moving can get people out of that plateau and starting to see results with their fat loss goals again. Reason 2, more food is sneaking in than you think. When you first started trying to lose weight, whether this was with a PT, a group program, in the first week, you was probably highly motivated. You was probably tracking and weighing everything if that's the tool that you was using, and you was probably on it, you know, you wasn't missing a beat, and you could probably do that for around 3 to 4 weeks. But after time, and we even know this through research, adherence starts to slip very slowly. So the tracking that was really accurate in your first week isn't so much in week 3, week 4, week 5. You start to graze on bits during the day. You start to eat some little bits off your kids' plate if they've not finished it. You start to snack a little bit more during the day. You know, it all kind of adds up. And again, we've all been there. I've been there. All of my clients have experienced this as well. This is just natural human psychology. If this is you, as a little useful reset, just start to weigh and track all of your food for 1 week. Just see it as like a bit of an experiment. Get curious with it. Everything that goes in your mouth, weigh it out, and then just see how many calories you are actually consuming. Because where you think you might be eating 1700 or whatever, it might actually be more like 2,400, 2,500. And I know you might be thinking, there's no way I'm eating that much. Believe me, you'd be surprised if you start to really zone in and be super accurate with your calories, and see where it's at. And while we're on the topic of progress, I want to talk about the scales because they might actually be making things look worse than they actually are. Now, bodyweight scales can mess with everyone's head, me included. I want to talk about it because it almost trips every single woman that I've ever worked with up. I can't fully trust it day by day or even week by week sometimes. Now, scale weight naturally fluctuates every single day. The things that I don't really like about certain slimming clubs is that they only get you to weigh in once per week, whereas we haven't got a clue what's happened during the other 6 days during the week because body weight naturally fluctuates. Take a look at one of my clients, Tara, who ended up losing 5 stone in the space of 14 months. Now, obviously, there's a lot of data reading here, but it was up and down every single day. Some days she spiked up 0.3 of a kilo, some days 0.8 of a kilo. The other days it was down 0.4 of a kilo. So it was all over the place basically. But what we did, we looked at the weekly average value. So at the end of every single week, we took the average of those 7 days. And we even obviously took into consideration the menstrual cycle too, because women obviously can experience water fluctuations and fluid retention during the luteal phase of the cycle. And we ended up tracking her cycle from month to month to even look at the average from luteal phase to luteal phase. And if you're not using any other ways of monitoring progress like photos, measurements, even like an item of clothing you want to try in every single 4 weeks, and you are just weighing in that once per week, you're going to get in your own head an awful lot, because that one weigh in per week, your whole progress is relied on that one weigh in per week. And you might have had a really positive week, you might have been really aligned with your goals and stuff like that. But for all we know, you might have just like had something really salty the night before. You might have had a bit more fiber the day before. You might have eaten out the day before. You might have not have been as regular the day before. And then obviously the scales the next morning will not show the true representation of your week. So my advice, start weighing in at least 3 or 4 times a week, take the weekly average value and bin off the one weigh-in per week. And the third reason is something that surprises everyone because it has absolutely nothing to do with nutrition or exercise at all. I want you to think about your average week. You probably work full time, you've maybe got kids, you've got relationships, you've got maybe a partner, you've got an endless to-do list that probably never gets ticked off, just like mine. Most of us are living in a low level stress environment, and it's just kind of like what everyone's just got used to. It's just the way that it is, but we didn't really used to live that way. It's how modern society has adapted. Everyone's just busy, everyone's stressed, and everyone's just kind of getting on with it. And believe me, in my 10 years of coaching, I have noticed this firsthand with people. More people are busier and more people are stressed. Now, when we're stressed, something does happen within the body, something called cortisol, the stress hormone, which by the way, we all need, and there's nothing wrong with it. If we didn't have cortisol, we would die, does get released. Cortisol does have a particular effect on hunger and appetite. When we are living in that constant lower level stress state, it drives our behaviors more towards highly palatable foods. We're less present, we're more likely to choose the more calorie dense option. We're less likely to choose the option that's more going to be aligned with those goals. How many times have you been there when you've had a really stressful day? You maybe not slept that well, you're feeling really burnt out, and you're mindlessly eating. You're on the sofa, you're grabbing some family pack of chocolate or crisps, and before you know it, you've eaten the entire bag. Now, would that person have done that if they wasn't highly stressed and they was more present, less stressed, and more regulated? Probably not. So whilst cortisol doesn't directly stop fat loss, it doesn't change the energy balance equation. It really does influence our habits and behaviors a lot. The fix isn't another meal plan. It's not plowing your calories into the ground. It's not by doing excessive amounts of cardio. That's the last thing you want to do. It's actually working on how you can bring your own stress levels down. Things like a better sleep quality, going to bed at a reasonable hour, not scrolling TikTok till 2 a.m. I know this is the most boring advice, but it really does play a role in your fat loss related goals. Moments in the day where your nervous system actually switches off. Going for a walk outside in nature, not having your phone on you all the time, doing a hobby without screens, stuff like that really. Once you start to feel a bit more regulated and present, cravings and appetite eases, you're less likely to overeat or snack mindlessly in the evening. So we can see how this hugely plays a role in your fat loss related goals. Remember I said that there was something that most coaches never mention, something that might actually be keeping you stuck. Well, it's this, and it probably will surprise you. Sometimes the reason that you've lost weight isn't because you need to actually do more. It's sometimes because you've been dieting for so long and in a constant calorie deficit, constantly tracking your food, constantly doing the cardio, constantly thinking about it all the time, that you're probably just a bit tired from it. Because doing this for weeks and months does take its toll within the body, physically and mentally. Your hunger's all over the place, your motivation is a little bit non-existent. No matter how much you try to push through, nothing seems to work. Clients that have come to me after trying for years and years with their fat loss related goals and not getting anywhere is actually not prioritizing fat loss straight away. And I know that might seem a little bit mental given that they've come to me for a fat loss related goal, but it's often the best thing that we can do. Taking the pressure off for a while, actually eating at maintenance, alleviating something called diet fatigue. Diet fatigue is when food noise is really high, you're always hungry, you're not motivated, all of those things that you're probably experiencing right now. When I mention this to clients that have come to me after trying for years and years that we are actually not going to start a fat loss straight away and we are actually going to start at maintenance, they start to panic because they think that I'm not going to see any results, whereas it actually has the opposite effect. When we start at maintenance, even for 3 or 4 weeks, intentionally at maintenance, it allows your body to recover. Your appetite gets back to baseline. Your body actually starts to feel more regulated, eating the same amount of food every single day. Because once you start to do this for a few weeks, you allow yourself then in a better position to actually then pursue fat loss because you're not experiencing all of these symptoms of diet fatigue. Not to mention, it's actually what your body's probably crying out for. It wants to eat at maintenance for a bit after years and years of always being on low calorie diets. How many people do you know that have either been on a diet, that means eating as less calories as possible, or the complete opposite, you've been eating loads and loads of calories? So actually, learning what maintenance looks like to begin with for a few weeks alleviates that diet fatigue, allows you to progress on with your fat loss related goals. Honestly, it's one of the best things that you can ever do, but no one will never tell you that. And it's often the thing that changes everything. Now, if any of those things felt familiar or you recognize yourself in any of those points, it's exactly what I do to help women in my own one-to-one coaching. We don't just look at a calorie target, we don't just look at a step target. You've probably done that, you've probably tried that, it's probably not worked. We'll look at what's actually driving those behaviors underneath it. And the mindset barriers, your relationship with food, those are the things that we need to work on to allow you to fully see progress. If you want to find out a little bit more about working with myself one-to-one, there's a link in the description. Give it a click, fill it in, I'll be in touch, and we can talk through how we can get you thriving for the rest of the year.